we all know what happened in the Southport riots. We all know the evil Rudy Kipani killing those kids, and the guttural and visceral hatred of that man and what he did to children brought out the worst in some people, and it caused riots. So the elites now are coming to a view that they need to try and understand why. Why did those riots happen? And what they've done is they've organized a bipartisan group of people to come to a commission for working out why there were riots of Southport. So before we get to that, I want to tell everybody to get involved and watch Real Politic with Firas Modad. His new episodes began on Monday. It's a real big journey about the world's geopolitics. It'll help you understand where we get in terms of the history of nations, why they interact with one another in the way that they do, why religion is so important, what's happening with the different political parties, why you've got the conflicts between Iran, Israel, where that support big ideas. And Firas has worked with all of us so far on this show, and he's really showing you how to do it. And I recommend getting onto that without a doubt. And it's something really interesting, and I'm finding it fascinating.
Firas definitely knows his stuff.
Yeah,
there's just no question about that.
Yeah. So I'm going to see if that's the first bit for us. I might have to pull these because these are coming up.
Right, just move it along.
That's the one.
Yep.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, a task force has been launched to tackle the root causes of the UK riots. And it's fascinating. Here we are. It's an independent task force, as the BBC called. It's going to be called the Independent Commission on Tackling Community Divisions. Even the name alone strikes fear into anyone who believes in the truth, honesty, and dignity, even just of our own language. But it does have some really fascinating people who are going to be chairs of it. It's a cross-party body, and it's going to have Sir Sajid Javid and Labour MP John Cruddas as the joint chairs.
So the first thing that I obviously have to mention is that if this entire commission is supposed to be set up to understand why the British public are so peeved and will riot about things, and it's being headed by Sajid Javid, who, when the recent demographic data about London came out and its minority white status, said, "So what?" I don't think he's perhaps the best guy to be leading.
No.
Seeing as he wasn't obviously willing to accept that anyone could have a problem with that.
No. He certainly doesn't believe there is a problem at all.
He was in government, wasn't he, during the lockdown stuff?
Yeah.
He was right at the top there at that time.
Well,
the man's a scumbag. I hate his guts. That "so what" thing was disgusting.
Yeah, it's just.
But clearly, this thing is just a whitewash or misdirection from start to finish.
Yep.
Because why were people upset at a slaughter of the innocents?
Yeah.
Don't know.
There's no.
I could tell you without a commission for free.
I'm trying to work that one out, really. I'm just trying to think how the use of knife, children, bludgeoning, death could possibly have wanted to make me riot. I just generally would have thought, once I'd heard all those children were butchered, the best thing to do is get out and bake a cake. Isn't it? Isn't that what we should be doing?
Get the bongos out, come by our...
Yeah, that's right. But anyway, I'm with you on it. And so we've got, the first thing is, we knew that after Southport, this is what they went to. They said it was a deleted LinkedIn post that weaponized and was seen by millions before the Southport riots.
Oh, thank you, BBC Verify. Yeah. Thank you for being the ultimate arbiters of truth.
That's right, of course.
Thank you for distinguishing between misinformation and disinformation on our behalf. Thank you. What a great service you're doing.
So one single LinkedIn post led to the kind of rioting of thousands, to be honest, across all the cities of there. But of course, that's one of the things that they thought was really, really important about it. And then there was, of course, another reason that, and I love this from GQ. I don't know if you ever saw it at the time. Great picture about that. Have you noticed one thing about that picture? There, who's coming towards us in the riots?
Yes.
There. Who's rioting there? Isn't that the people that they're normally supposed to be supporting?
He's doing a Roman salute as well, isn't he?
Yeah. He's a Muslim with a left-handed Hitler. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, and all of the rest of them are Muslims looking down the street there, and aren't they the ones rioting on there? And then you've got this little picture of a guy in glasses says, we will not become second-class citizens in here. But this is GQ, grooming, fashion, all about style. But every now and again...
Gentleman's Quarterly.
Yeah, the Gentleman's Quarterly for those with too much money in London who want to really look cool whilst they're in a coffee shop looking at a girl saying, look, I can actually read. But anyway, and it's just pictures. But they do have politics articles. And in this particular story of the Southport riots, you can just imagine exactly what was going on. This is all, first of all, the first parts are all about Patrick Hurley was on the corner of the street with a bouquet of lilies with Yvette Cooper. Patrick was deeply upset as the MP for that particular area, as he put it down. And then...
Paddy Pimlet?
Oh.
It's just an advert.
I think that's just an advert.
Sorry.
An advert. Don't worry. I mean, we'll just pop in and we'll just see. It's good to know because I didn't know who that was. Then they talk about, there was this brutal murder that went on and, how upset I was in terms of being the MP and I needed to come down and see it. And then, of course, they then go down a little further and they talk about how Ibrahim Hussein was in the mosque close by and they were told that there was going to be, in our very nice, sleepy town full of old people and retired people where nothing happens, I'm suddenly told by the police that there may well be a bit of a riot going on, which we've not had here. And then the further down he goes, and the further down you go on, it talks a little bit more, building up to this big riot. And of course, it's Andy Ngo and Andy Tate that helped cause this riot. Social media amplified it, talking about how it was a Muslim and it was American right-wing commentator Andy Ngo who wrote a book about Antifa's plans. So now Andy's a bit of the cause. And then later on, as we keep going through that, there's the great part where they start talking about how it's big blokes who don't live in the area. Big masked blokes.
Oh, yeah.
Big masked blokes came from all over the country that night. So I didn't realise there was lots of vans, lorries and coach hires going to the Southport riots. You can go and buy a ticket. Let's do a Southport riot. But that's who they blame. It's the right and big black blokes, big blokes in black masks.
And wasn't it shown a few weeks ago or a couple of months back? Because that's what Keir Starmer said while it was going on, or within days, that it was people from outside that came in. And the actual senior police people said in committee just a few weeks ago that just wasn't true. That was not the case.
Yep.
So GQ peddling liars then here.
Yeah, so that was it. I'm dealing with the immediate reactions afterwards. Rolling Stone in America said it was Elon Musk. Clearly, he was out there with his petrol bombs.
Yep.
He'd obviously paid for thousands of petrol bombs to go to a street there.
What is their actual reasoning there? How is he even tangentially... How is he even remotely...
He did a tweet along the lines that it was like, we've got revolution or civil war.
Okay.
Remember that civil war?
The thing is as well that the whole tactic here when it comes to people like Musk and Tate and all these sorts of people, it's the exact same tactic that they used against Powell all those decades
Absolutely.
ago. When they just say, oh, well, if you just didn't voice these things, if you just didn't say these things, then people wouldn't think them.
Yeah.
When in fact, the absolute opposite is, of course, true. The feeling amongst the local residents is there first, of course. And, people like Musk or whoever it might be, just give voice to a feeling that is already pre-existing. And so if you eradicate the ability to say the opinion, you're not addressing it because everyone in Southport is still going to be absolutely disgusted about what the authorities allowed to happen and about the murder of their children.
Yeah, what a morally bankrupt thing it is to be outraged by the reaction to an atrocity than the atrocity itself.
Absolutely, and you can go on through this article. It talks about Tommy Robinson being involved in it.
Tommy Robinson, real name Stephen Yaxley Lennon.
Oh,
that's classic. They actually did it. They actually did it.
Then we get I find it a little bit of an interesting article down here. I'm just going to test whether no, that didn't come in. So I'll have to go right down the bottom of it. Mm-hmm. So this is the Counter-Terrorist Business Advisory Group. Mm-hmm. They come on usual assessment of the causes and consequences talks about Southport, talks about the groups involved, Tommy Robinson. It then lists the violent disorder program that the government has then set up about it. Tech for Terrorism organisations saying we need to look at that. And then as you get a little further down, you start two things. We know we're not alone, and we're drawing together our communities and partners to help us do more to silence those intent on spreading news. That's part of the government's plan. And they're interesting that they picked this up because of what we're talking about now. But I do the picture right down at the bottom. I think it's almost close towards the end. This is the part that I think is more sensible. Without generalising, it's important to consider other factors that has been highlighting contribution to the violence. Cost of living crisis, unemployment, lack of trust and respect for police, a general increase in violence anyway, a feel of not being represented by government, the weather.
The weather.
Yeah. These are all the kind of ideas being pushed by this group of people, according to this counter-terrorism business organisation. And I'll quickly move through because I know there's quite a lot here in looking at this.
Anything other than the actual act, the actual slaughter of innocents.
Absolutely.
Anything other than that.
Yep.
Based on decades of traitorous immigration policies.
That's right. That's right. It's all the different things, including the weather. I just thought that.
A contrived artificial foreign.
Yeah. Come to think about it, there is precedent. Weren't the Golden Riots back in the 1700s caused by the weather?
Sure.
That was a weather.
Sure, yeah.
Phenomenon, wasn't it?
So we then get this, which is the Home Secretary's statement on disorder, and they have now organised with police a special disorder campaign that's being done. And I'm going to let people just read through this. The whole idea here is they go through the list of shops and everything like that. But in the end, we've created this group of people run by the National Police Council and the Coordination Centre on how to deal with terrorist organisations and criminal violence, they're saying. They're causing this, a form of terrorism on that. And I want to say that's important because this is where I believe they want the evidence to create legislation on how to create, go from disorder. We've set it up.
Yeah.
We now need the evidence to go further.
Mm-hmm.
So along comes the Independent Commission on Community and Cohesion, and this is the organisation. We are a thriving multi-ethnic and multi-faith democracy where most people in town cities get on with each other, but we're experiencing challenges to our communities and local lives. So we now find ourselves at a crossroads with generational questions. How do we live together in harmony?
We can't.
Exactly. I'm trying to think of that song. You and me in. It was like living in harmony.
What, Ebony and Ivory?
Ebony and Ivory.
Paul
I'm trying to think. It kind of all comes out to me as this kind of song when you're looking at the pictures of there.
What's the Rudy Cabana? What's his surname?
Rudy Cabana.
Cabana. That's their surname. Ask that family how we live together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask them.
Yep.
Are we supposed to live together in peace?
Sorry, could you just scroll up one moment, Stephen? To the top, where it says about the UK is a thriving multi-ethnic and multi-faith democracy. This is the entire problem, because that is the predetermined project.
Yes.
And therefore, because that is the project, certain conclusions have simply become dismissed, right? They're off limits.
Yeah.
And so you're never going to get the answer because you don't want the answer. You don't like the answer that you're being told, which is that we never chose or wanted to be a multi-ethnic, multi-faith democracy.
That's right. Absolutely.
In the first place. And the more that you force it to be, the more you're going to encounter more Southports. This is not me endorsing rioting, but I'm just saying it's naturally going to lead to that if people aren't going to find political representation for the grievances in Parliament. And
they're being ignored. And this is fascinating how the establishment are now trying to create this. And they're doing it as an independent commission. It's apparently backed by the government, but not financially supported by the government. This is an interesting point. And we'll not produce a report from behind closed doors. Instead, we'll engage with communities across the country in order to understand how to enhance community connectedness, cohesion, and resilience. Well, that's fascinating.
Blah, blah, blah,
Blah,
blah.
blah, blah. But I'm just fascinated if we organise ourselves our own responses to this. whether they would actually listen to it. But we do have an opportunity. I may work on a little project to create different interesting elements about it. Now, I just go through some of the names because I think who's in it. All these various people, David Halpern, Behavioural Insights, he was on the COVID group to how to control us all. Sundar Katwali, famous Fabian, nice guy when he was nice. First ever person that allowed me to do a speech from UKIP on immigration. Caroline Lucas.
One of the worst fifth columnists you will ever come across.
Caroline Lucas in there.
Also fifth columnist.
Yeah. Tim Montgomery, Fraser Nelson. You
get the measure of it.
You're getting it. Andy Street, so all of these are in there. There's an op-ed from there. Please have a look at it. Building on our foundation. They've already started. And when I looked at this, the initial plans, we worked with British Future and Belong, who I haven't examined a great deal on there, to build the early evidence base. I see exactly how British Future work in here. National representative polling, which is they create the language that they want that results in the answers that they want. Then they get funding for someone and they give it to a bigger polling company saying this is what our polling is. If someone gave me £5,000 or £10,000, I'd do a polling that would give us the answers that we want. Public focus groups, he then went around the country, funded by them, hotels, and they go and then get little groups of people who give them the focus groups on the questions that they want. And that has expert roundtables. I wasn't on it. Calls for evidence, were you on it? Don't know who these experts were, but they've already produced, out of 100 submissions, the basis of this research that they're going to use. So the solutions are already there in the basis. That's what they want. The rest is just waiting and seeing what language they can use. They've already made the decisions. But I want to
say, at the end, pardon me, at the end of it all, no doubt their conclusions will be white systemic racism. The problem. Of
course it will be. Fear of the Islam, fear of the Muslim.
White bigotry, that's the problem.
That's where it's going to come to. Now, the Together initiative is something that says very clearly at the top of this page, of this initiative here, it's a charity, and it receives 100, this is the overall organisation that runs this particular group. So when you look at the independent Commission on Cohesion, you go right down to the bottom. You have to try and search a little bit more. By the way, everybody, if you want to respond, that's where you respond. You can write your own answers, and let's see whether they will actually take any notice of it at all. But it talks about the Independent Commission. I have to look through Living Well Together, and then the Together Initiative. So the Together Initiative, I've just deleted it. It's a charity. Sorry. It has 7 trustees. And this is where it gets interesting. I look at these 7 trustees. I look at the names. I don't know whether I've got any of them up here. The steering group of Together. All these names here. So when I go back to who I was looking at, again, I've just deleted that one as well. Okay. Yeah.
Do you want me to scroll it on this?
Yeah, scroll it. It's a little bit better. Okay. So I'm going to talk about the one I deleted. Maybe we can try and get it put back up because I think everybody needs to read who those 7 people are, the trustees. Those 7 trustees are people who work as partners in law firms, partners in accountancy firms, partners for Saatchi and Saatchi. These are just individuals who sit on a group that receives about £1 million a year. I think it's coming back here. Brilliant. Oh, thank you. You can get rid of that. That's fantastic. So these are not people that you see in political parties. I tried to look through all of them. Dr. Michael Clark down there, it just looks like a simple professor. And I kind of like a bit weird. These people have just ordinary day jobs. And I took out pictures and images of them. If we go across to the next one. Then they have a steering group. And let's see, you can get in there. Steering group. Heads of big companies. Mike Clark, CEO there of RSPB. That's who he was.
Thing is, you're asking all these people.
Tende Bawani.
Yep.
Who's on this?
Why don't you just go to Southport and ask the people? Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'm looking at him.
What does he know about it?
Right. So these are just a couple of examples. He is a partner on the private equity side of an investment management firm for Deloitte. So all of those individuals who are the trustees of this charity are just people that you would kind of think, that's just an accountant, that's just a lawyer, that's just a banker. And then they've got the money. I follow where the money is. Always important to see the money. I see the money's rising each year, 300 to 867,000 last year, and then 993.
We're still talking about the Southport Riots.
This is the organisation that is controlling and funding the commission.
Okay.
This independent commission of Sajid Javid and John Cruddas is being provided with the money and control, and the same language that comes from their documents is in that, from this initiative called the Together Initiative, with 7 trustees who look like they're just bankers and lawyers. And then when you go through the charity, which they all run, I look at the audited accounts on there. You can follow that all the way through. You then start to see that it's funded by the government. You know, they have funded the Big Help Out, the Thank You Day, the Together for Humanity, the Together Initiative. They explain how our aim is to build a kinder and more closely connected communities from it. All really weird stuff, to be honest. And they get their funding, and they got you can list the activities. And now next one is how we're funding. This goes all the way through to the money. It's come from £1 million of it come from the National Lottery.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yes.
£1 million of this is the National Lottery. And then Connor Tomlinson starts to take apart the individuals in it that we've talked about. So I want to get this picture. These individuals are all very bland, all very kind of centrist, all brought together because they say they're Greens, Labour, Left, Tories, but actually they
already have the right opinions.
They all have the right opinions, are being funded by an organisation that's money from DCMS and the National Lottery. So it's the state effectively funding an organisation with 7 trustees who are bankers and lawyers to fund an organisation that's going to tell us what happened and why people rioted in Southport.
Which we already know. The amount of time and effort and money put into containment is madness, isn't it? This is containment. This is what containment is.
Yes.
It's this.
Only it's not containing anything anymore because everyone's sick of it. But this is the stuff gets us angry in the first place.
And there's some really unpleasant people on this. I mean, I look at Khan, for example. She is... Dame Sarah Khan. She worked with Hope Not Hate last December, declaring a 2-tier policy in extremist conspiracy theories and contemporary far-right narratives that asylum seekers seek to elude them as Muslim invaders. All of this are the stuff that should go into the Prevent program, and that we have far-right networks. But she expanded the Home Office Islamic network to over 700 individuals in terms of that. Sajid's brother worked with her. So this is a group of individuals all working with each other as well in the background, and I'll let people go and have a look a bit further on that, looking at the time. And I would say they talk about a tinderbox of disconnection and division threatening our democracy. That is the kind of lines. But here is this is the statement from them. Now, I don't know who ever did the clip. I think I did the screenshot. Rather than everyone go down, Sajid Javid and John Cruddas talk about there is a timidity that is partly in government because there's no single lever that fixes things in the short term, and there is no one authority in this country who feels they can lead the national discussion. And they pick out Lee Kuan Yew and Charles de Gaulle as the type of individual that should be leading the discussion in this country about how we have cohesion. Okay?
What?
Yeah. Lee Kuan Yew. There he is, for those who don't know him. He was the Prime Minister of Singapore for a very long time. He was a lawyer, 1959 to 1990. I would call that a dictator myself, personally.
Yeah, wasn't it like a hardline, nationalist might not be the right word, but a Singapore ultra.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, so he's an ultra, some sort of...
Yeah, who kept out immigrants and ensured that they couldn't get jobs. He was an effective dictator. And I've even found, it doesn't take you long to find out about his concoction of Asian values was mainly to deter Westerners from criticizing repressive regimes. This is the individual.
I see.
He worked with the Pentagon to help murder people through his there. And so I'm just thinking, this is the sort of individual these guys think should be running the national argument in Britain at the moment. A single dictator that effectively controlled immigrants for the purity of his own group of people, who ran, as you saw, pretty much, and some people called him a little Juliana or Stalin. He was clever, disciplined, effective, prescient, racist, vicious, vindictive, and a control freak. This is who Sajid Javid thinks should be the kind of archetypal individual. I'll quickly get there. I'm going to end on...
What about Charles de Gaulle? What's it? Again, French nationalist.
Yes, that's right. Isn't that fascinating?
I sort of do admire and very interested in Charles de Gaulle in various ways, but not as some sort of...
Blueprint for Britain.
You're right, not as a blueprint for Britain in any way.
So I'm just going to end this because I'm looking also at time.
Yeah.
I want people to see how the establishment are organising themselves to control the message with the individuals and how they get their own money to their own people to run it. And then they've got these really weird ideas of who should be controlling the system in Britain. And then the way that they did the reports of the Brixton riots and the Scarman reports in the 1980s, that led to the extensions of race relation acts. It led to housing, jobs, where we are, all in the idea of like diversity. That's how they dealt with the riots of what they called the black people in the 1980s. Why aren't they doing something similar to the way that we've rioted after the deaths of children in this country? And that is because perhaps we need Li Wan Quan as a dictator in our country to control us all.
If you would like to watch the full uncut version that is also uncensored, head on over to lotuseaters.com to find out more.